I said I charged it all day. I did.
You're out of battery. Use your hard copy.
Good. I'm gonna use modern technology anyway.
10 seconds.
I'm gonna even use the gavel tonight because I'm remembering it.
6 o'clock.
Nope, still got 30 seconds. All right, what the heck? We'll split the difference. We'll call the meeting to order and announce that we do have a quorum present. At this time, if you would join me for a word of prayer, please. I forgot. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, we thank you so much for the rain you've given us. Lord, you know how much we need it, how much we prayed for it, how much we want it. We thank you and we ask that if it be your will, you continue to bless us with that rain, Lord. Either way, we just thank you for all the many gifts you give us. Most especially, Lord, I pray that you protect our men and women who watch over us every day in every field, from our military to our local services. Lord, I pray for this council that they operate in a manner that is pleasing to you and serves this community in a way that not only is the best possible way to serve the community, but also shows your grace and love, Lord. Lord, we thank you so much for your Son, Jesus Christ, who died for each and every one of our sins. Thank you, Lord. In Christ's name I pray. Amen. If you'll join for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, bumper cars. At this time, we will move into council announcement. This is an opportunity for council to speak, an expression of thanks, congratulations, or condolences, information on holiday schedules, recognition of public officials, employees, or citizens other than employees who officially those statuses may be affected by the council through action, reminders of community events, updates on city properties, and otherwise just talk to us about anything you want everybody to know. So, council, have any comments?
I just want to comment on our emergency services of all kinds. Whether it be our public works, who will come to our rescue when it's absolutely necessary, when there's a major water main break, and stay until the job's finished, or for our EMS staff, and I learned something. You call, when you call from 3 hours away and you're pinged in that location, that really doesn't help your family member who is in need of EMS services at home. But you know what? I had the aforementioned PD number in my phone, called it. The sheriff's department was covering. We had 3 different phones connecting to get the help that we needed, and the EMS came to the house, didn't break down to the door, used the codes that were provided, and provided the service that was necessary in the early mornings when I was 3 hours away, and I never had a moment's concern about the safety of my loved one. He was well taken care of. I could hear over the phone the professionalism of those people who had come to his rescue. And so I just want to, that's really, really awesome for us to be able to depend on the people who serve our community, even when we have temporarily left the community. So anyway, I could go on, but I appreciate them more now than I did 2 weeks ago, because there's something about that firsthand touch that brings it home.
Definitely, good comments. Along that lines, I'm just going to touch on something for the chief real quick. October 3rd is National Night Out for law enforcement. the chief is working on something as a community event that will be held up there at the EMS complex in front of the police department, there in front of that deal. Then we'll have more information and give that out. But I just wanted to say that as you touched on that, EMS, fire department, and PD will all be involved in that. So it'll be a great community event. And again, they're still working out the details, and Chief will put out a little bit more of that on our social media, and we'll get flyers out and we'll work on that. But that's a great comment, and you're very correct. We have an awesome EMS staff. The other thing I did want to mention to everybody, and we did a couple of grand openings here recently. The most recent one was on Wednesday. We had, no, that was not Wednesday, that was Saturday. Last Saturday, we had a nice grand opening for curbside cuts, and then the cool thing about that was we had a downtown block party. It was amazing. There were so many people that showed up, so many vendors, so many local people, merchants, and just people who came in to enjoy the day, and the kids got to. So again, I love the idea and the fact that as a community we're growing and we're getting back to knowing our neighbors. We're getting back to doing things together. So again, thank everybody that came out for the block party, and hopefully that's something we turn into an annual event. Okay, other council have anything?
I do. So, we're aware we had some water issues a couple weeks ago, big main break, and Jerry, I want to thank you, and then also your guys, Glenn and Dennis, Chris, Jason, Marcus, Kenny, Chris Lee, Sonny, Michael, Elijah, Kane, and Ryan. That's the ones.
And also Mr. McGuire.
And Mr. McGuire. Okay.
He was there with us every step of the way. He was there.
And I know that was a huge undertaking, and you know, we didn't have water, and that was a inconvenience, but I'm glad that y'all stuck it out and got us taken care of. And then the other thing, I don't have all the names, but the firefighters, we've had lots of volunteers. Volunteer firemen have really been working their tails off to keep everything burning down. So appreciate all those guys.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Jerry. Please pass that along. I mean, I know we've reached out, but please pass that along to your guys. They did a great job.
Yes.
Got us back up and running very quickly, considering how much we put on y'all, so. And Chris, yeah, he was there. He was down in the ditches too, so.
I mean, it was 36 hours or straight. Most of those people worked. So
Yeah.
anyway, we really appreciate it.
Again, we've got a great staff. We've got a great lineup right now. It's what's so nice and what's able to make our town what it is today. So, absolutely. Any other council members have comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll close 4.0. We'll move to 5.0. This is public comments. You just giving me a pen?
Ms. Gold wants to
Oh, okay,
speak.
well, I was just wondering why you just tapped me with the pen. Okay, sorry. Moving on to 5.0, this is public comments and receipt of petitions. At this time, anyone will be allowed to speak on any matter other than personnel matters or matters under litigation for a length of time not to exceed 3 minutes. No council or board discussion or action may take place on a matter until such matter has been placed on an agenda and posted in accordance with the law. But I believe we have somebody that would like to speak. Yes, ma'am. If you don't mind, if you would come up to the podium and just give your name and address for Connie for the official part. And if it's inconvenient, you can stand right there, because I think we can hear you and they'll be able to hear you, and you
It'll
don't.
be very brief.
Okay. Oh.
Thank you.
So yes, ma'am.
Thank you for the prayers too. I had an experience I had before, and it.
Ms. Good, what's your address?
Oh, I'm so sorry. 402 Bryant Road.
Okay,
You know the rest.
I do.
I got dinged for big limbs being in my front yard. And the way that the letter was worded at the bottom, I'm gonna skip all of this because I know it's a form letter. It doesn't really mean anything, you know. But at the bottom it says, to call, and it gives the number for questions regarding this issue. We're happy to advise and assist you in abating this violation any way we can. And so my call, I mentioned what it was, and my question was, can I pull it to the curb? No. All you can do is put it in a receptacle, in the plastic receptacle. That really wasn't applicable. These were big branches, so I work in customer service and you have a script. If they would have a way for these people that are at the desk to have an outline, if it's this issue, you know, this is what you can recommend, something to give them some guidance. That was really what I wanted to talk about,
Okay.
to try to help.
Okay, and then this is not discussion, but I just wanna make sure that I got that. So basically, if there's something that happens that one of our citizens needs to call in and speak to one of our, ladies up front or whoever's there, just something that they kinda have, a guideline to go by that addresses certain issues, and then
Right.
that way that would give them some good information.
Right, or if they don't have it, then they can get back with you. That's part of customer service, you
Okay.
know.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely, that's something we can work on. Sorry, I'm not supposed to discuss it, but that's something we can work on. No, thank you so much for coming in and bringing that to our attention, that's exactly how we get to take care of things.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you.
Yes, sir, sorry.
All right, anybody else like to make public comments? Okay, seeing none, I'll close 5.0. We'll move over to 6.0. This is a presentation by Ken Martin with Jacobs and Martin to address council concerning projects for the city of Clyde. Mr. Martin, thank you so much for being
Yes,
here.
sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for having me. I'm Ken Martin with Jacob and Martin. In talking to your staff, we thought it would be a good idea to meet with you and bring you up to date on several of the projects that have been taking place for the city of Clyde. Before that, I thought about the Johnny Cash Man in Black, but then I looked at the mayor and I thought, well, maybe not Man in Black, but at least he, when I look up here, I see all of your Red Raider fans because it's black and red, it's gotta be. Nevertheless, we wanted to talk to you about some of the projects that have been completed and some of the projects that are ongoing and really have discussion if you have any questions about any of these projects. But the first one I've got listed there is the Hagan subdivision. We did the water and sewer line part of that project. Now, I understand the road part of the project is still continuing, but the water and sewer part of it was completed back in April of 2023. And then the next project, the Blake Howard subdivision, I know these have different names, but that's the way I refer to them. You know which ones I'm talking about. I guess it's on 604, I guess, is,
Kingswood Estates.
yes. Those water line plans were completed in October of 2022, and then the city installed all the water lines. So I understand that project's completed, just waiting for them to, I think the roads are completed and everything else. It's just waiting for them to I guess, start housing construction. And the Callahan Bayou water and sewer line project's been completed. That's across the road there, and I think they're getting water samples now, is what the issue is. They've done the testing of the water lines, the water and sewer lines have been installed, and so that project will be ready. I don't know where the road is on that project, but I know the water and sewers is essentially completed. The city also has a TDA, Texas Department of Agriculture grant, that was given to the city for construction of a sewer line over on Eastview Drive. The existing sewer line there was really flat and did not drain well and caused some problems for the city. And so the city is using the grant funds to install a new sewer line. Part of it will be down FM 18 or Stevens, and then it'll go down to Eastview and replace the sewer line on Eastview. That contract was awarded, and the contractor is, I believe Bunky Construction is the contractor. He's under contract, and the construction is supposed to start next week, and we anticipate that project being completed by March of 2024. Also, we've prepared plans for rehab of the Hayes Road lift station rehab, and I think those plans are about 90% complete. There might be a question or two from the city staff regarding piping that we need to have answered before we can finish those plans. Then we can finish those plans quickly, and you can take bids on whatever it takes to rehab that lift station. The next project is the Sports Complex Access Road. I personally have not been working on that, but one of the other partners at Jacob and Martin, Tal Fillingham, has been working on that project, and he's been talking to Chris about that project. The plans were completed, bids were taken. I think it was Bunkie. Bunkie was the low bidder on that project. But we've been having trouble with the gas line companies. There's a couple of gas lines that the road has to cross, One OK, and then also Energy Transfer. And I understand that Energy Transfer is not being reasonable. The last I heard from Tal was they wanted the city to pay them $56,000 to uncover the line, to check the depth, and then to recoat the line, which is not reasonable. The reason that we're having difficulty with them is because they want 3 foot of cover over their line is shallow. Same thing with One OK, but they want 3 foot, and we could raise the road, but it would just go over the pipeline. We'd rather not do that if we don't have to go up and over and kind of have a hump over it. We may have to do that. But we're still trying to work with the gas line companies, and unfortunately, sometimes they're like the railroad company. They feel like they own everything. Y'all may work for a gas line company, I'm not sure, but sometimes they're hard to deal with. And I know Chris and Tal are both working with them, and hopefully we can get that worked out. But the plans are finished. The project was bid, Bunkie was the low bidder, and we're just kind of waiting on getting a final release from the gas line companies. On the last project, of course, the big project is the Phantom Water Supply project, and last month we sent all the plans to USDA and to TCEQ after working with the city staff on making modifications to the plans. Once we got all of that completed and approved by the city staff, then we submitted the plans to USDA and to TCEQ. I had emailed a set of the plans to Chris. Chris has got an electronic copy, but I went ahead and brought a hard copy, and we have those there. That includes the pump stations, the tanks, the pipeline, all of the things that are involved in the project. And so USDA has those plans right now. There was a lot that went in, obviously, right-of-way, acquisition, the easements. In my outline here, I said that we were waiting on USDA to give us a list of what has to be done before you can get to the bidding process. They call it the loan closing instructions, and he emailed it today. So we just got it today from USDA. It will go down through that list. Your city attorney will have some things to do. The city staff will have things to do. It's things like sending them copies of the easements, guaranteeing that you have the right-of-way. If you'll remember, the easement process was very difficult, and we got down to the end, and one of the landowners wasn't going to sign the easement. The city had to threaten eminent domain and went through all that. I'm sure y'all all remember all of that. Nevertheless, we got all of that. We've submitted a permit request to the railroad company, and to my knowledge, we've not got anything back yet. It'll probably come back to the city because they sent it back to us. We sent that permit. We also have the TxDOT permits that we'll need to get. The city will need to register. TxDOT changed their process of getting permits to a new website that you'll need to register on their new website. And if have you already done on the new site? Okay, good. Then we'll need, we can help you. Ron Miller in my office will help you put all of that information in on the permits for TxDOT. We do have the permit from Callahan County and from Taylor County because we're crossing their county roads with the pipelines. We've got those permits. Jones County indicated we didn't have to have a permit, just to send them what we were going to do, and so that's where we are on that. Once we are allowed to take bids, once we satisfy USDA of the list of all the things, they'll say, okay, go ahead and take bids. Of course, we typically advertise for a month. This will be a big job. There'll be some big contractors bidding on this job. And so we usually advertise on a big job 30 days. So it gives them plenty of time to figure the bid, get all their material prices together. But once they allow us to bid, we'll take bids. We fully expect the job to be out of budget. I mean, the original cost estimate is a number of years old, but USDA has indicated that they would try to work with us. There are other opportunities for funding if we need additional funding, but USDA has indicated that they would try to get the city the amount of money that is needed to finish the project. But they won't do anything until we actually take bids, which is understandable. You don't know for sure what the cost is until you actually take the bids. And we've done that on other big USDA jobs. They'll work quickly to get the funds for the city to get it going. If they don't, then there are other opportunities for funding. So in the original funding that the city received, there was money set up for construction, engineering, surveying, and everything, but there was also quite a bit of money set up for refunding of the, now it was loan money, but refunding of the loan that the city had for buying the water debt from Phantom, if you'll remember that you have, and I think you've already refunded that. Yeah. And so you've already done that. So that amount of money, we asked USDA, could the city use that money for construction? And the initial indication is yes. That's what we've been told, is they talked to the state director, and he felt like that would be a possibility. They're not gonna make any decisions until we take bids. And so that's the next hurdle. Soon as we get approved from TCEQ and we get approved from USDA and meet all of those lists of requirements, then they'll come back and say, okay, you can go ahead and advertise for bids. That takes a few months. I'm hoping we can take bids before the first of the year. That would be ideal. If we can take bids before the first of the year, they've given us till June of '24 to close the loan. Well, once we take the bids, then we know what we gotta do to close the loan. It may still take another month or two, but I don't see any reason why we'll miss the June '24 deadline. There should not be any problem at all, because we will work diligently with the city staff to get in a position to be able to advertise for bids, hopefully before the first of the year, so that we know where we stand on the money. But that's the big project, obviously, is to get that going, get that project under construction. We're anticipating probably a year of construction, because it's a big job. The pipeline job will be big, the pump stations, and all the work that's involved there. It'll be at least 3 or 4 different contracts. You'll have a tank contractor, you'll have a pump station contractor, you'll have a water line contractor. There may even be there'll be subs involved also, but we'll do at least 3 contracts, so. That brings you up to date on these projects. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have about anything else the council might have.
Council, any questions for Mr. Martin?
We had talked at one time about grudging the lake out of Clyde once it gets low enough. What are the options on that?
I can tell you from previous projects that we've been involved in where people have looked at that, it's not very cost effective. The cost of dredging, because you're talking about essentially per cubic yard of excavation, even if you got scrapers or something, if it was dry bed, you could go out and scrape it. That might be one way. They dredged Lytle Lake.
A couple years ago.
And what they did with that was they got it low enough, but they still had to liquefy it. And so in the liquefaction of that, they would pump it. They would suck out the mud and water, and then they pumped it to a remote location. You gotta have a location to pump it, obviously. But I don't know how much they actually removed, but I know they spent over $1 million, and how much they actually removed, I'm not sure. I just know in the past, when anybody has looked at that from a municipal standpoint, it's not very cost effective. But if it was the only option you had, then it might be worth considering.
Are there any other options you can think of offhand?
Other than dredging?
Yeah, that a municipality might take.
You know, if you could, if you didn't flood and you raised the dam and raised the spillway, that would be another potential option. You gotta go through, all the hoops with the state to do that and any downstream people. But if you proved that you were not impounding any more water, in other words, the first thing to do, you'd need to do a silt study, and I think the state will do the silt study for you for free. I think they'll come out and do a study for you, determining how much silt has come into the lake. And that would be a first step, is just call the water board and ask them if they'll come do a silt study. And then if you proved that, listen, we're gonna raise our spillway a little bit as long as you were not flooding someone else or some other property, then that might be an option to raise the spillway, raise the dam, and say, okay, we're not gonna impound any more water than we were originally impounding. It's just that the silt has taken it up. That might be a better option than dredging, maybe.
Sounds good.
But I'm just kind of throwing things out
No,
that's just a for instance. I don't know if that's even possible.
That's worth looking into, though.
But I'm pretty sure the state will do a silt study for you.
Excellent. Council have any other questions or comments concerning Jacobs and Martin's work they've been doing for us? They do a great job, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
For
sir.
the update, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes.
Nothing? Well, all right.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay, at this time, we'll move into our consent agenda. This is to consider and act upon approving the minutes from the regular meeting of August 8th, 2023 as printed. Council's had an opportunity to look over your minutes. Anybody have anything to discuss on those? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I move that we approve the minutes from last meeting.
Second.
Oh, Mr. McGuire got you. So we'll say, Councilman Martin made the motion, Councilman McGuire seconded the motion. All those in favor? That passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 8.0, this is our public hearings. This first one is 8.1, be notice of public hearing on property located at being Lot 6 of W.J. Dugan subdivision, Clyde, Callahan County, Texas. Request is for a final replat of property into 3 lots, so a duplex can be constructed on each lot. The property is currently zoned as 2-family duplex. Mr. McGuire?
Public hearing.
Oh, I forget. Sorry. This is an opportunity where you, the citizenry, can come forth and ask any questions and find out any information about why we are wanting to finalize this replat. Nobody? Okay, I'll ask Mr. McGuire when we get to that agenda item next time. Then I will close the public hearing on 8.1. We'll move to 8.2. This is a public hearing on tax increase. A tax rate of 0.68 per $100 valuation has been proposed by the governing body of City of Clyde, Texas. Anybody have any questions about your tax rate, what we're looking at, what the city's thinking about? Seeing no questions, I'll close the public hearing on 8.2, move on to 8.3. This is a public hearing on fiscal year 2023-2024 budget. The City of Clyde will conduct a public hearing at 6 p.m. on September 12th, 2023 at the Clyde City Hall for the purpose of soliciting citizens' input on the fiscal year October 1st, 2023, September 30th, 2024 budget. Would anybody like to discuss the budget or anything we've looked at, anything we've worked on, anything we've made happen? Seeing no comments, I will close 8.3. This is where we'll move into our regular agenda. So 9.1 is to consider and act upon approving a final replat of property located at being Lot 6 of West J of W.J. Dugan subdivision, Clyde, Callahan County, Texas. Preliminary replat of property into 3 lots so a duplex can be constructed on each lot. The property is currently zoned as 2-family duplex. Now, Mr. McGuire.
So, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens, this is the final action. Last month in the council meeting, you approved the preliminary replat. There was no objections at that time, and council passed it. This supports the construction of additional housing units for rental property here in the city, which we desperately need. So it's city staff's recommendation that you approve the final replat.
Very good. Council have any questions for Mr. McGuire about this? If not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the replat.
I move that we approve the replat on the property located Lot 6 of W. Dugan subdivision.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Martin, seconded by Councilwoman Kaufman to approve the replat. All those in favor? Passed unanimously, thank you. Moving on to 9.2, this is considered with possible action to adopt an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, adopting a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024, in accordance with state law, appropriating the various amounts thereof and providing for an effective date. Mr. McGuire?
So, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens, this is our legal requirement to adopt an ordinance to approve the budget. The budget, FY '24 budget is in your package. I think that everybody's reviewed it. It's a balanced budget and met all the spending requirements and all the strategic priorities of both city council and department heads. Everything that was a must fund is funded, and there's money in there for the department head requirements. Some of the requirements that were in there that we'll be able to take care of is an emergency generator for the police and fire station. That was a big priority. There's also money inside the budget to begin paving city streets, which is something that we work very hard to come up with a paving plan. We work very hard to be able to purchase the material. And we do, inside the budget, have enough funding, depending on asphalt prices on any given day, to do between 3 to 3.5 miles of streets this coming fiscal year.
Very good. Council have any comments about our budget? If no comments, I'd entertain a motion on our budget.
Make a motion that we approve the budget as presented.
Have a motion by Councilman McGuire, seconded by Councilman Martin to approve the budget as presented. All those in favor? Passes unanimously, thank you. 9.3, consider with possible action to adopt an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, ratifying the property tax increase reflected in the adopted budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2023, and ending September 30th, 2024, in accordance with Texas Local Government Code, Chapter 102, and providing an effective date. Mr. McGuire?
So, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens, what we're proposing this year is actually a 4.5% decrease in the effective tax rate from 72.5 cents to 68 cents. We realized that the appraised values went up, and it was a burden for citizens. So we did everything that we possibly could to be fiscally responsible and keep our spending in line and our budget balanced. And in doing so, was able to reduce the effective tax rate by 4.5 cents.
Council have any comments after mine? Chris and staff, Connie, thank you guys very much for all the hard work you've done on that, not only on our budget, but in knowing what our citizens have gone through in the past year and everything that's going on with county and everything else. The idea that a city and our administrators in our city have tried to figure out a way to give back to our citizens and to help our citizens is truly a sign of showing the caring that we have for our citizens in this city. So thank you guys for all y'all's work. Y'all done an amazing job, and the idea that we could actually lower our property tax rate versus raising it as so much in the county has happened is amazing. Council have any comments or questions for Mr. McGuire? If not, I'd entertain a motion concerning our lowering our property tax as it's stated here in our product.
Make a motion to adopt an ordinance ratifying the property tax decrease.
Have a motion by Councilman Rector, seconded by Councilman Martin to approve the ordinance. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank y'all very much, and again, thank you staff for such a great job. 9.4, this is considered with possible action to adopt an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, levying an ad valorem taxes for tax year 2023 at 0.68 per $100 assessed valuation of all taxable property within the corporate limits of the city to provide revenues for maintenance and operations and interest and sinking fund requirements, providing due and delinquent taxes, providing due and delinquent dates penalties, and interest for said taxes, and establishing an effective date. Mr. McGuire.
So, Mr. Mayor, council citizens, this is the official act of setting the ad valorem rate at the 68 cents. What's significant, as I just said, being able to reduce the 4.5 cents, working with all the city department heads, we were able to present a balanced budget, and we were able to not impact the operations and maintenance side of the budget and meet all our interest and sinking requirements. So this was a lot of staff work. I want to commend the staff. They took the guidance to prioritize, and they did. Every department head turned in a prioritized budget, and we were able to do this as balanced and in the best interests of the cities and the taxpayers.
That's correct.
Okay.
We lowered our tax rate, but because of what the Central Appraisal District did in raising
Still
the
increase.
property taxes, even though we lowered our tax rate, we're still gonna have an increase because of what the appraisal office did.
County.
Those values did.
Well, I read that, and I said, that doesn't sound right, because we just said.
Yeah.
We did decrease our tax
Okay,
rate.
okay.
This is all based on property valuations,
Right.
not on the city spending side.
Very good.
Right.
Okay, excellent. Council have any other, and thank y'all for that discussion there. Council have any other discussions or questions concerning what Mr. McGuire covered on this?
I just want to make a comment that I appreciate the behind-the-scenes work that happened before it even got to the emails that came to council. And there were a number of emails that came to council informing us of what can we do and do differently? What are the different ways that we can budget, measure, color the money, if you want to talk about it in colors of money. And it's a challenge, guys. And that if you think about our household budgets, and then this is our municipal budget, and then we wonder why nationally it's so hard. I mean, there's not even a conversation hardly about a balanced budget. So I just wanted to make that known to our citizens who hopefully are hearing this or reading about it, that there was nothing that wasn't considered once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, to try to think of a different way. Because we knew what the final line would be, and we were trying to impact that as effectively as possible. So.
Very good, thank you. Council have any other comments, questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion concerning adopting the ordinance.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.68, which includes 0.423837 for maintenance and operations, and 0.256163 for interest in sinking funds, which is effectively a 13.99% increase in the tax rate.
A second.
I have a motion by Councilman Rector, seconded by Councilman McGuire.
This has to be an individual vote.
So at this time, I will ask for an individual vote. Councilwoman Copeland?
Yes.
Councilman Martin? Councilman Rector?
Yes.
Councilman White?
Yes.
Councilman McGuire? That passes unanimously. Thank you all very much for that. Moving on to 9.5, this is to consider and act upon adopting an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, amending Chapter 13 Utilities, 13.02 Solid Waste Article, 13.02.010 Waste Service Rates, 13.03 Water and Sewers, Division Two rates, charges, and billings, sections 13.03.51 water rates and section 13.03.052 wastewater rates of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Clyde, Texas, by increasing water and wastewater rates, incorporating recitals, providing a repealer, providing for severability, and setting an effective date. Mr. McGuire?
So, Mr. Mayor, council, and citizens, this was probably the most complicated part of the budget process. And this was the part where there was the most input from all the council members on how we do this and how we do this effectively. But it has to be noted that over the past 4 years, the city has not increased water and sewer rates. And we've absorbed all those costs to the tune of losing roughly $400,000 by absorbing those costs. So for example, chlorine for water purification has increased from what we were paying $11,437 a year. We're now paying $21,347 a year, which is almost a $10,000 a year increase year over year, and it's an 87.33% increase over those 4 years that we haven't raised rates. The alum and the other production chemicals have increased significantly. We've gone from $48,000 a year to $96,000 a year on those chemicals. That is roughly $47,547, which is a 99% increase. Insurance has increased from $155,640 to $255,640, $100,000 annual increase. Electricity has increased for all the municipal production of water and sewer from $156,269 to $187,299. That's a $31,000 annual increase, that 19.83%. Now, the biggest increase that we've seen is a 400% increase in the cost of materials. Water and sewer pipe has gone from roughly $1 a square foot to $4, or $1 a linear foot to $4 a linear foot. And that's on the low end of the small pipe, and it has increased exponentially on the larger lines. And you heard Ken say on the Fort Phantom project how much that project has increased. And these are items that are completely out of the city's control. So when we went back and forth about how to do this and how to cover that $400,000 that we can't afford to keep losing, the solution was, instead of raising the per gallon or the per 1,000 gallon rate that citizens are purchasing the water, the most equitable way to do it was do $10 base increase on the base price of water, $10 on the base price of sewer, and then a 2% increase on the trash. I know that there's going to be questions of why the city just took over trash, why are we increasing? So we are saving money by doing the trash ourselves. We're providing a better service to the citizens. But gas and maintenance of the vehicles has increased. And we are still well below all the other cities that are doing the service. For example, we are at $25.24 a month for a customer that has 2 polycarts. And Republic Waste Service has just increased their monthly cost for polycarts for anybody that's getting their service to $75 a month. So we're dramatically below all the competitors. We do have the lowest per 1,000 gallon water rate. We gave that presentation a year ago where we did the comparative analysis across all the other water systems. So the only way to recoup that $400,000 was to add the $10 to base, $10 to sewer base, and do the 2% increase. So we'll go to $16.70 a polycart. It's roughly a 34 cent increase. So we're not talking massive amount of money, but it does cover the cost, the added cost of fuel and the wear and tear on vehicles. So the staff's recommendation is that you do approve the ordinance and that we change the effective rate.
Council, have any questions, thoughts?
Do I understand correctly that the 400,000 was history? And so that was in the red. This calculation and this proposal would bring us to running in the black from this point forward,
It'll bring us to even.
even.
We will absorb all the costs that we've been losing $400,000 a year on. Will bring us back to even. And the hope is that the trajectory of inflation, that they start bending that inflation curve and it starts to come down. But at least we won't be losing money on the enterprise side of the budget. And so that everybody understands, the enterprise is the business operation of the city. And it's just not sustainable, like any business, to continue to lose $400,000 a year. We just can't afford to do it. We lose money on the enterprise side. That impacts everything else on having a balanced budget. And it creates shifting priorities where we're taking priorities out of general fund priorities to cover the enterprise side of the budget. So this was done with a lot of thought and a lot of analysis. And we looked at multiple courses of action, which were presented to everybody to try to work our way through this, to do this in the most equitable way and not impact the citizens. And I think that it's a very fair proposal.
Well, to continue to absorb all of the factors that go up in producing water and providing water to our citizens, for us to continue to do that, you know, I know that everybody's gonna hate that we're going up on base rates. I know that's gonna be, everybody's gonna be upset that we're going up. But considering everything that has gone up and how much is there, and this goes directly to, well, why did we take over our own trash service? Well, we know, and it's public information, anybody wants to find out, what our savings is by taking over our trash service. Same thing as you said about our poly carts, what we're paying to take our trash elsewhere, anything that might come in like that. The fact is that if we were to try and absorb that in another way, we literally might have to go up, if we had not taken on our own trash service, and we had to figure out how to pay that extra $75, you know, for poly carts, and as these things, our taxes would have had to go up a lot more, I think. I think we would have had to have raised them quite a bit significantly more than where we are now. And again, council has spent the past month working very hard trying to figure out all the things that Mr. McGuire has presented to us to try and establish what this budget's gonna be. It's gone back and forth, it's been arguments, it's been, I won't say there's been name calling, but there might have been a few times when people were upset enough to be that frustrated. The bottom line is that we haven't passed along these upgrades, these costs, but we're still having to pay them. That money has to come from somewhere. And for us to continue to be able to provide water to our citizens, it has to be increased somewhere. That money has to come from somewhere. So that's my take on it. That's my thought on it. Council have any other thoughts or questions for Mr. McGuire?
If the citizens would have known, 2 years ago, we paid in trash, it's crazy to see those numbers. It's mind-blowing what we're getting charged by Republic. So, and we're getting both.
And they go up 2%
Yeah.
every year on us in June.
Which is something, again,
So-
we did not turn over to our citizens. That 2% increase that Republic gave us every year.
Yes, we did.
Oh.
Every June.
That's
When
polycarbonate.
they passed it to us, we
Yeah,
passed it.
on that part, but then all of the cost effect on that deal, we
Yeah.
did not send over to them, our sludge, all of our stuff. Go ahead, Tom,
No,
sorry I
no, you're
interrupted
fine.
you.
No, you're fine. That's all I had.
No,
And just, it's worth noting, because it was, on the trash side, we have reduced the operational cost of running trash by nearly $500,000 by us
Because-
doing the service ourselves.
So that 1 year, it was what, 412?
Yeah.
412,000 that Republic billed us.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy that,
We negotiated very favorable landfill rates with Aberlin Environmental Landfill. And like I said, we've reduced the operation cost to sanitation by roughly $500,000. But we're absorbing increased fuel cost, we're increased operational maintenance costs. And the trash is just a small part of it. The real bulk of where we're losing money is on water and sewer. And like I said earlier, when PVC pipe increases by 400%, and you see the number of water line breaks that we have aging infrastructure, there is no way to stay ahead of that curve paying these increased prices. We'll wind up bankrupting ourselves, and it just takes away from everything else that we're doing as a city for the citizens. And importantly is that we didn't go up on the consumption charges. So we're talking about $20.34 a month per customer versus what Republic did to people that have Republic service, where their polycart rates jumped to $75 a month. And our water rates are still the lowest in the region. And unlike the city of Abilene, that's published a plan and has notified all their citizens that their consumption charges are increasing for the next 5 years, and they added in layered fees on top of all that. We looked at every single opportunity to find ways to close that budget gap, and this was the most effective way that shared the least amount of pain, and it was the lowest possible increase to close that $400,000.
Council have any other thoughts or questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion concerning adopting the ordinance, or I would entertain a motion concerning this ordinance.
I move that we adopt the ordinance.
Second it. Did you say second? Okay, sorry, I didn't hear you. I have a motion by Councilman Martin, seconded by Councilman White to adopt the ordinance. Any other discussion?
It's painful.
Yeah, very.
We're aware, for our citizens and for us, that this is painful. But we all like to have a place for sewage to go and for clean, trustworthy water to drink. And we like to have our solid waste disposed of. We also like to have a hamburger, and we'll go to the grocery store and we will pay whatever for a pound of ground beef. It's the same. But it doesn't mean it's not painful, and sometimes we gasp when we see our grocery bill. So, anyway, one thing, if there's difficulty in paying the utility bills for 4 utilities, I'm talking to the citizens, please let City Hall know so that we can reach out for resources for individuals who qualify to be able to help with those sanitation and fresh water provisions that are absolutely have everything to do with the health and the well-being of our community and each individual citizen. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Kaufman. All right, then at this time, all those in favor? All those opposed? All right, so we have it, the ordinance will pass with a 4-1 vote. Moving on to hold on, 9.6, discussion with possible action concerning ratifying certification from City Secretary that the candidates for office of council member is unopposed. Ms. Thornton?
Well, we had enrollment for anybody who wanted to run from council, open from July until August. And we only had 3 people sign up, you for mayor, and Danny White and Paul McGuire were the other 2 for council. So because we just had 3 spots open and only 3 people signed up, we will not be having an election this year. And I am certifying that that is all that we received were those 3 applications.
Very good. Council have any questions for Ms. Thornton on that? If not, I'd entertain a motion concerning our certifying that there were no other candidates applied.
I move that we certify that no other candidates applied.
All right.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Kaufman, seconded by Councilman Martin. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. 9.7, consider an act upon adopting an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Clyde, Texas, canceling the election scheduled to be held on November 7th, 2023, in accordance with Section 2.053A of the Texas Election Code. Ms. Thornton?
So y'all called for the election at last month's meeting, and due to us only having the 3 openings and the 3 signups, we are not required at this point to have an election this year. So it will save our taxpayers around $14,000.
Good. That's awesome. All right, council have any questions concerning this ordinance or concerning this? Yeah. None? Then I would entertain a motion to approve and adopt the ordinance.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion by Councilman Rector, seconded by Councilman McGuire to approve and adopt the ordinance. All those in favor? Passes. Thank you. 9.8, consider an act upon an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, repealing ordinance number 2020-009, deleting section 12.05.001, which is South 3rd Street, of Article 12.05, Street and Specific Regulations of Chapter 12, Traffic and Vehicles of the Clyde Code of Ordinances, reverting South 3rd Street between Hunt Street and Clyde Junior High School to a two-way street. Mr. McGuire?
So, Mr. Mayor, Council, and citizens, the Clyde School District has now had mandated state security requirements for their campuses, and this is part of their overall plan to secure those campuses. Would require a change of the ordinance in the direction on 3rd Street and Hunt Street. So after consultation with staff and city attorney,
Hold on 1 second.
Yeah, he already did.
Yeah.
you left, you,
Well, and myself too.
Yes.
This is where we'll have Ms. Kaufman take over on this. I apologize. As an employee of the school and as Councilman McGuire is an employee of the school, we will both have to step out of the room during this part, so sorry about that.
so by adopting this ordinance and repealing the section on the one-way travel of the street, will allow the school district to move forward with their security plans to secure that campus. So in consultation with the city attorney and staff, it's staff's recommendation that you approve the ordinance.
Okay, is there any discussion? I can't see that we have any other recourse than to cooperate with whatever it is that keeps our children as safe as possible as they are on campus. So I would consider a motion to adopt this ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Okay?
Second.
And second. So we have a Councilman White who has motioned and Councilman Rector who has seconded. All in favor? Passes. Okay, I think the next one is right, they're together. So this is consider an act upon adopting an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, closing the portion of Nottingham Lane lying between Forest Road and Sherwood Lane in the W.J. Dugan subdivision, finding that the street to be closed is not necessary for use as a public thoroughfare, authorizing conveyance of said property, providing savings and severability clauses, and providing an effective date. Mr.
So,
McGuire.
council, citizens, again, this gets back to the security requirement mandates from the state for the school district. Nottingham Lane has no value to the city. It's already being used as a thoroughfare to drop the students off. Us abandoning the street and giving it to the Clyde Independent School District allows them to move forward with any security plans that they have to fully secure the campus and control traffic flow for the safety of the children. So in consultation with the city attorney and staff, it's our recommendation that council approve this ordinance and that we abandon Nottingham.
Okay, do we have any discussion? Again, this is related to the elementary campus, where the other one was the junior high campus. So, no matter what age they are, we want them to be as safe as possible. So I would entertain a motion.
Make that motion.
A second?
Okay, so we have Councilman White, who has motioned, and Councilman Martin, who has seconded, and all in favor? Thank you, passes.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Okay, now moving on to 9.9.
No, we did
19.
9-10.
Right, y'all went right on, took care of good business. Moving on to 9.10, this is consider and act upon a resolution of the City of Clyde, Texas, revising the Personnel Policy Manual, Section 3.11, work hours to include 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. work schedule and 40-hour work weeks. Sections 4.2.3 and 4.2.4 concerning compensatory, thank y'all, time accrued, sections 5.15, holidays, adding Martin Luther King Day, and 6.3.3, use of city vehicles, about restrictions for use of city vehicles. Mr. McGuire?
So, Mr. Mayor, council, and citizens, this was part of the review of all existing personnel policies in the employee handbook. Language that was currently in section 311, work hours, was outdated and didn't reflect the true operating hours of the city. So the 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. is the true operational hours of City Hall, and the 40-hour work week. The previous clause in that didn't have city employees working a 40-hour work week. And this just brings us into line with the true work schedule and the operating hours of City Hall. Sections 4.23 and 4.24 deal with comp times and holidays. The compensatory time right now is set at 32 hours. The change will bring the compensatory balance to a citizen or an employee can accrue and hold up to 80 hours. There's real value in doing that. The water break a couple weeks ago is a prime example of when you see that many employees with overtime the way it was. There were employees that would be willing to take comp time, and it alleviates the cost factor of paying the time and a half overtime, and it gives flexibility to all the directors on how they manage that comp time with their employees, and it's just another added incentive back to the employees. So, and then the other one was concerning the holiday section. We added Martin Luther King Day. It's recognized by the state, it's recognized by all the city governments, and it's recognized as a federal holiday. So we've added the Martin Luther King Day to the holiday schedule. And then 6.33 is the use of city vehicles. There was a very liberal policy on city vehicle use. We've incurred a lot of expense on city vehicles, being good stewards of part of the budget process and all the direction that council is given and trying to find ways to reduce costs wherever possible. There's a restriction on city employees taking vehicles home. So the only employees that will have a vehicle are the on-call employees, the on-call animal control officers. As they rotate, they will have a vehicle that goes home at the end of the day with them for on-call after-hour calls. The water and sewer plant on-call will, as they rotate that through their employees, it's once every 6 weeks an employee has it, so that vehicle goes home with that. And then the only other city employee that's authorized a take-home vehicle is the chief of police. And then we will authorize any of the police officers that live inside city limits to take their patrol vehicles home. There's some value of having patrol vehicles in neighborhoods, reduces crime. And it gives the chief, if there's an incident that requires an immediate response from off-duty officers, those living in the city have the vehicle to respond immediately instead of going to the police station. So those are the administrative changes to the policy, and these changes are necessary for effective administration of the city. So it's staff's recommendation that council approve this resolution.
Council have any questions or comments for Mr. McGuire?
I have a question about what the workday looks like. I see from 7 A to 6 P, that's 11 hours. So do they have an hour lunch and a 10-hour workday?
Some do, and some work a straight 40-hour work week. We have a staggered schedule here in City Hall, so that City Hall is open from 7 to 6. The way the previous policy manual wrote, those City Hall hours weren't in line with what we were doing in the city employee work schedule, was at
37 and a half.
37 and a half hours.
It showed the hours from 8:30 to 4:30.
So, although it shows the time from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., it doesn't mean that one particular worker is working from 7 to 6. It just means that there's staggered shifts.
Okay.
So that the office is open from 7 to 6.
And the idea behind that is to be as business-friendly to the community, especially when they're coming in to municipal court or paying water bills. And so we do have people that work in City Hall and the Water Department of Municipal Court that are on a flex schedule where they're working 4 10-hour days, then have a day off. And then we do have people that are working a straight 8 to 5 with a 1-hour lunch. So we've got all the operational hours covered.
And then the compensatory time kicks in at 40 hours?
So after 40 hours, when it would be overtime, the employee now has the option, instead of taking pay, to have compensatory time. And that gives the directors a little more flexibility, and they ultimately control their employees' leave schedules and when that kind of time is going to be used. But this was some feedback that we received from employees. And then when we did the analysis on it and looking at the most recent event where there was a huge overtime bill, being that water main break, as we ran through the numbers and what we would have reduced in cost and payroll in that given pay period, most of the people would have opted to have comp time. So it makes good business sense.
And reducing the overtime also reduces the payroll taxes, correct?
And it reduces TMRS contribution. It has second and third order effects all the way down the line. So when you run out the true labor burden cost, there's a significant savings. And now we can't force employees to take compensatory time. You know, they have to opt to take that. But if they do opt to take it, it helps the city and it helps the employee by giving them a little more flexibility to have some more days off if they choose.
Okay, all right, thank you.
We talked to the post office about taking this idea, keep them open after we get off work. Council, have any other questions for Mr. McGuire about this? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I make the motion that we approve the resolution to make the changes in personnel regulations.
Did you second it, Danny? Oh, Paul. I have a motion by Councilman Rector, seconded by Councilman McGuire. All those in favor? Pass unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 9.11. Let's wait and see if y'all correct me. Consider and act upon an ordinance of the City of Clyde, Texas, imposing a municipal hotel occupancy tax in the amount of 7% on the rental of hotel rooms within the city and the city's extraterritorial jurisdiction, requiring collection of the tax and certain reporting by hotels, providing a penalty, providing severability and repealer, and establishing an effective date. Mr. McGuire?
So, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens, the rationale behind adopting this ordinance is twofold. One, now there is a state requirement for Airbnbs for cities to start collecting the hotel occupancy tax on any Airbnb or any privately rented short-term stay properties. So this brings us in line with that. the city will collect a 7% fee, the state gets a 6% fee for a total 13% of the hotel occupancy tax.
Is that also in like RV rental space? Is that,
Not-
it doesn't
not
do
RVs.
that? That's what I.
It's not the RVs, it's fixed facilities. Now, the second and most important part of this is in preparation for the hotels that we know that we have coming. So as part of getting ahead of the first hotel that will be constructed here shortly in Clyde, we needed to have the ordinances in place because that is a state requirement. And then it also becomes an economic incentive bargaining tool to entice hotel development. So now we do have the complete, once the ordinance is, if council chooses to adopt, we will have the flexibility to have some incentives on the table, specifically on what the city's collecting on the hotel side, seeing we're not collecting any, we have no hotel and we're not collecting any tax. That 7% helps us incentivize projects, seeing we're not currently collecting it, so we're not missing it. But once the hotel is built, if we choose and council approves any kind of economic incentives, the 6% is a mandatory collection back to the state. There's no way we can incentivize that other 6%.
Very good, thank you. Council have any other thoughts or questions?
And just, one more thing to add,
Yes.
so that everybody's got a clear understanding. The hotel occupancy tax is very complicated, and so we will collect those funds, and those funds can only be used, they'll be set aside, and they can be only used for very specific instances. And that is to promote tourism, sports arenas, cultural events, or any kind of advertising that brings visitors and attracts people to the city of Clyde. So it's not like that tax gets collected and goes into general fund and can be spent on anything. It's not like it goes into the enterprise center of the budget. It sits in its very own account and can be only used, and it's audited quarterly to the state. So, we'll be responsible for submitting those quarterly reports. We're gonna start the process of notifying all the Airbnb owners and VRBO sites that are inside city limits that this ordinance goes into effect. And again, 6% will immediately go to the state, and the other 7% will sit in a fund only for that category of programs that the states authorize you to use your hot tax for.
Does that include the Airbnbs out at the lake?
Yes.
That designation is really important for not only council to understand, but for our citizens to understand that when the question is asked, well, why can't we pave another mile of street? We've got all this hot tax, the hotel occupancy tax. It's because that's not what it's designated for. So that's just, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention.
The other thing that's important about it too is it's not a tax on any taxpayers. The people that are coming in and staying are not citizens of Clyde.
Correct.
They're out-of-town visitors that'll be staying at hotels, Airbnbs, VRBOs, things like that. So we're not impacting anybody locally with an added burden. This is an administrative requirement from the state, and by law, we are lawfully entitled to that 7%, and that 7% will add up quickly once the hotel is up and operating. And then, again, that gets reinvested back into tourism, all the categories that the state says that we can spend money
Yeah,
on.
see,
We're
that's-
not pulling money out of the general side to do things.
Exactly.
We'll have funds to market, we'll have funds to do things that are fabulous.
Very true. Have any other comments or questions? No, I'd entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
Move that we approve the ordinance?
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Councilman Martin, seconded by Councilwoman Coppin to approve the ordinance for the hotel occupancy tax. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 9.12. This is to consider and act upon awarding the bid for the property located at lots 10, 11, and 12, Block 1, Shanks subdivision, 123 North 4th Street West, Clyde, Texas, Callahan County. Mr. McGuire?
So, this was the old senior citizens building. This is the property, so that anybody that's not aware of what this building is and what that address is. We followed all the state mandated requirements for a sealed bid. It was out for 2 weeks. It was advertised, so we met all the legal and statutory requirements. We received a total of 3 bids from 2 bidders, with one bidder submitting 2 bids, and then the second party submitting a bid. The highest bid came in at $80,000, which is in line with the real property value of the property, slightly above the real property value, but in line, so it's legally, we're in solid standing that we're not giving away a piece of property less than the appraised and taxable value of the property. That was something that we had consultations with the city attorney about. So all the legal requirements have been met, so it's city staff's recommendation that council accept the highest bid.
Council have any thoughts, questions, concerns?
Can we approve 2 bids? Combine the 2 bids together?
I'm sure.
And something that's worthwhile noting is that the proposed business for this is something that the city desperately needs, which is a child care center. So I'd really like to thank the Roberts for leaning forward and doing something that the community desperately needs.
Yeah.
So if there are questions from citizens of why we're selling a piece of property, it's a piece of property that we didn't have a good purpose for, and now can be repurposed in something that serves the whole entire community.
Definitely.
Well, I can't think of a better person than open up a daycare, and that's Misty.
Miss Hester, he's gonna.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? If not, I'd entertain a motion to accept the highest bid.
I'll move that we.
Go ahead. Fight it out, boys, I don't care.
Arts and Martin.
I'll move that we accept the bid on the property.
Second. I have a motion by Councilman Martin, seconded by Councilman White to accept the bid. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank y'all very much. And again, thank the Roberts. Again, that's a great venture for y'all. Good luck with that. 9.13, consider and act upon adopting a resolution of the City Council of the City of Clyde, Texas, appointing directors to the Clyde Economic Development Corporations Incorporated. Mr. McGuire?
So, Mr. Mayor, council citizens, the term for 4 positions is up at the end of September. Melissa Stallings, current board member, has said that due to her work situation, that she is no longer going to stay on the board. 3 incumbent positions, Daniel Noratsky, Terry Phillips, and Kendris Snidesvant, have said that they want to remain on the EDC board. And we had another citizen express interest in being on the EDC board. In the EDC board meeting last night, this was discussed, and it was a unanimous vote from the EDC board that the city reappoint the 3 incumbent positions and then appoint Shannon Calkins as the new board member in replace of Melissa Stallings.
Council have any thoughts? I'll tell you that I did speak to Shannon Calkins personally about this. Melissa Stallings had given me her name, said that she's a local business lady here and has interest in being more involved in the community and being involved in this. And so when I reached out to her, explained to her what it required as far as times, the meeting times, what is expected of of a EDC board member. She agreed and wanted to be a part of this, so again, it's, as Chris said, it's EDC's recommendation that council reappoint Daniel Narachki, Kendra Sinisfed, and Terry Phillips, and then also appoint Shannon Calkins. So, unless you have any other questions or thoughts, I'd entertain a motion as that.
Shannon Calkins, what business is that in Clyde?
It's a real estate,
I thought that.
yeah, it's a real estate agent.
Make a motion that we approve the, members of the EDC board.
Second.
A motion by Councilman McGuire, seconded by Councilman Martin, to reappoint and appoint the members of the EDC board. All those in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank y'all very much. We'll move on to 10.0. This is executive session. Council may enter into closed or executive session to discuss the following. Consultation with attorney, Economic Development Corporation, personal matters, and deliberation about real property. So at this time, ladies and gentlemen, y'all are welcome. Yeah, yeah, I was, thank you. Y'all are welcome to stick around. I have a feeling executive session will run a little bit long tonight, so department heads, y'all are released. If y'all would like to call it a night, thank y'all for being here, we appreciate that. Anybody from the city, Mr. Reed, if you want to stick around, feel free, but if I was you, I would. So with that, we are in executive session.